Welcome back everybody to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. Making a video today as a reminder to really respect the vintage sewing machine that you have. And we often talk about how tough they are, how robust they are. You are looking at the Singer 66. This is the one I made a video of showing its pathetic, sad state, but that's another issue. The reason it's here is of all the sewing machines Singer made, the Singer 1591 and the other Singer 15 related models are some of the toughest ever made. If you cannot sew it with a Singer 15 class, you probably are not going to sew it with any domestic sewing machine. They are one of the toughest ever made. They were sometimes referred to as the farmer's machine or the farmer's Singer. Now, if you want a top-loading bobbin machine, the strongest top loader, not the strongest but machine generally, but the strongest top loader I've ever seen is this one, the Singer 66, and its 3/4 inch wide cousins are some of the toughest top loading bobbin machines I've ever seen. They will sew thick fabrics and they will chew through things like tractors. But everything has its limits. If you ever purchase any vintage sewing machine of any type or brand, and someone calls it industrial, it is not. If someone says it can sew through anything, it cannot. If someone says it'll sew through metal, please don't do that. Now, this is a piece of fabric that I was doing some test stitching on. And when this machine is salvaged, we're going to put it through its paces, and I'm happy to push a machine. In fact, I had a Singer 66, I believe, one that was slightly newer than this one, and I think I pushed it to 6 layers of denim. Now, I could take a fabric like this, right? Heavy fabric, it's 4 layers plus the seams. I think, no, 2 layers plus the seams is 4. I can fold it over, and you know, you've seen me and other people do this. You can do this with fabric, and if you're testing the machine will start to tell you when you've reached its limit. It'll either start to pop needles, even when sewing slowly, which you should be doing if you're sewing heavy stuff anyway, or the machine simply won't go through the fabric. Now, you've seen me do things like those denim videos where I did that. You can do that on a limited basis. You want to be careful because your motor, if you have an electric machine, can only sew through so much thick fabric. In fact, I would argue that a treadle machine or even a hand crank version like this one, the setup it has, would actually get you further. But there is a limit to everything. If you, for example, try to put 15 layers of this under the presser foot, it won't fit. The presser foot spacing is, and that's not bad. I mean, that's actually pretty good. But again, you're going to run up to that limit. And remember, your presser foot is working with your feed dogs to feed the fabric. If you jam too much in there, it's like trying to eat a 10-layer sandwich. It's just not going to work. The other thing that you will see people do, they'll put all kinds of materials. They'll put, metal, and they'll get a needle to go through it. They'll try to sew, like I say, heavy fabrics beyond what the machine will work on. And then sometimes you'll see videos where people will take leather. Now, I've demonstrated how wonderfully vintage sewing machines can sew garment weight leather, lightweight leather, within I think I've done 2 or 3 layers with a leather tip needle. But all leather is not equal. This is the remnant, the piece of a leather belt. Okay, leather belts are very dense. When leather is tanned, the way it is tanned and the way it is cut determines how dense it is. If you see sewing machine videos where people take something like the belt, men or women's belts, but you see men's belts like this, and they'll take 2 and 3 layers and they'll sew through them. They force the machine into it, and you sometimes get the machine to sew this. It is not good for the machine, and it will shorten its life. It can shorten the life of your motor significantly. It can burn out your motor. It can also pop needles. It can knock the timing off your machine. There is no reason to do this. When a sewing machine has had its limit, it will speak to you. It will either stop feeding fabric, it will slow down to the point that it doesn't want the needle to go in, or it'll start popping needles. If you force it, you can actually knock its timing off, which is not easy to do with many of the vintage designs. Some of them are more vulnerable to that than others. So, if your machine starts to balk at you and you've got everything else right, your thread tension's good, you've adjusted that, you've threaded it properly, you've got the right needle type, such as a jeans needle for a fabric like this, especially with lots of layers, or a leather tip needle, and you've got the right size and everything is working well. When the machine is not wanting to sew for you, you don't have a digital beeper or code, and you don't need one. Listen to your machine. Watch it. It will tell you, I think I've had enough. And if you keep forcing it, like you see on some YouTube videos, don't do that, because you're going to harm the machine unnecessarily. As I said, these machines can run circles around a lot of modern machines when it comes to heavy material and multiple layers. They are truly the most robust, some of the most robust appliances for the home I've ever seen. But remember, they were designed for home use, and our ancestors had to sew a variety of things. And I'm sure people did sew garment leathers, and they've made machines do things. But if you want your machine to behave and to be happy and to last a long time, when it starts to balk, don't force it. Listen to your machine. Your machine is heirloom quality. This machine, if I can overhaul it, or any of the vintage machines from this period, they can outlast all of us if we take care of them and use them as they were meant to be used. And they can sew so much heavier material than most of your modern plastic machines do. But again, every machine has a limit. These are domestic home sewing machines. They are not industrial. They may look industrial and they may weigh a lot, but they are not. Remember, things that were made for the home back in the day, a lot of them were made with all metal construction and just over-engineered to the hilt, because they had to make sure that they could meet the wonderful warranties that were offered. If you have a machine and you've gotten to a point where it won't sew, it probably is time for you to consider an industrial, or at the very minimum, a light industrial or tailor's machine, which will have both advantages and disadvantages, as any machine choice does. So, just remember, do not believe everything you see in social media with people doing all kinds of stunts with sewing machines. Please don't do that. I have tested the 66 in one of my earlier videos, and I kept adding one layer of denim at a time and paying very close attention to the machine. And actually the machine kept sewing, but a needle snapped. And I realized that it was time. It was time to stop. And you cannot do that regularly anyway. But again, your machines, your vintage sewing machines, they are tough. They are strong, but nothing is invulnerable. And there's no reason to abuse them and to shorten their lives, because you're trying to show off. So just remember that the next time you are tempted to sew something. Again, you can try as long as it fits under the foot, but then go very slowly, have everything proper, the right needle, and then if the machine gives you trouble, make sure it's not related to thread tension or anything like that. It could be that you've reached the limit, and if you have, just stop. Chances are your machine will be fine if you stop and you don't keep continuing to push things through it that it was not meant to sew. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this was helpful, and stay tuned for the next upcoming video.